Okay, picture this. You're driving down a small country road in the middle of the night. It's really curvy and you can barely see past your headlights. To make matters worse, a really bad fog has moved through and is obscuring the things you actually could see. You're leaning forward, you're trying really hard to focus, you've turned your music down because that helps somehow, when all of a sudden, a man appears in front of your car. You can barely make anything out, but he's wearing a hat and a trench coat and he's waving his arms frantically in the air. You stop the car and you get out to see if he needs help. If you're anything like me, I just lost you. I would never get out of my car, but just bear with me. You get out of your car to help the man, but he's gone. You can't find him anywhere. You walk around your car, you walk around the road, you're even calling out, but there's no one there. This man that you just saw with your very own eyes has seemingly vanished into thin air. You have just had an encounter with the ghost of Hugh Hamblin. Hi, I'm Hoffman. I genuinely have no idea how to introduce these things, but I'm super psyched about today's urban legend. This is the first one I've ever covered that actually starts with the true story, and so I'm so excited. Albert Hugh Hamblin was born on October 18th, 1877. People really were just naming their kids Albert back then. That's so funny to me that someone picked up a baby and was like, yeah, that's an Albert. When Albert was born, his dad was 25 and his mom was 16. Yeah, if Albert's dad was still alive, he would be a Minecraft YouTuber. Hugh was a very successful man. He ended up being a jack of all trades. He was a logger, he was a farmer, and he was even a blacksmith, which is insane to me because my dumb brain thought that blacksmiths stopped existing in like the medieval times. I didn't even know we still have blacksmiths today. What do you even do? You like make swords and shit? That's so cool. Your forearms got to be insane. Like I bet if you put blacksmith on your Tinder profile, you have people lined up immediately. Later in life, Hugh worked for the Tennessee Eastman Company, and in 1915 and 1916, he worked on the Bay Mountain Dam. And if you're not from the area, that was kind of a big deal. What I'm saying is, Hugh fucked. Specifically his wife Josephine. Hugh married Josephine in the year 1900 when he was 23 and she was 16. If Hugh was still alive, he would be a commentary YouTuber. Okay, hot take. Can we please bring back the pictures where we just stare into the camera and don't smile? That is so funny to me. Like imagine you have a family member that died and you miss them so much and the only pictures you have of them look like Justin Timberlake's mugshot. Fun fact, when they got married, Josephine could not read or write, so Hugh taught her how to do it. Rhysand? Is that you? This is something that Hugh regretted almost immediately, because once Josephine learned how to read and write, she realized that she wanted to be a preacher. Now, women preachers did happen, but they were extremely controversial at the time. It's a good thing it's been over 100 years, so I'm sure it's way less controversial now. She would go around preaching at tent revivals under the name Sister Josie, and apparently she was popular. Like a lot of people came from across the country to hear her preach, and this really bothered Hugh, not because she was a woman who was preaching, but because when she was gone, he had to take care of their 7 kids. And I have a couple thoughts. One, I get it. We don't have kids, but when my wife is gone, my dogs just stare at me like I'm their weird stepdad that they didn't want. And 2, 7 kids. That is insane. She must have been pregnant all the time. And I don't understand how pregnant people do anything. If my stomach hurts, I don't leave the house. This woman was like popping out kids in between going to tent revivals where she was telling hundreds of people they were going to hell. I don't know how she did it. Apparently, the people who lived around Hugh and Josephine always knew when she was preaching because they would see all their kids like walking down the street carrying their stuff to other people's houses. Okay. Fast forward to the year 1922. 5 boys decide to take a Ford Model T on a joyride. I can't even imagine what that looked like, because what'd they go, like 25 miles an hour? That's like taking a golf cart for a joyride. What's more important than how fast they were driving is where they were driving, because they had just hit the infamous Netherland End Road. Now, this road was really famous mostly because of how many people had gotten into car wrecks and died there. There were so many car wrecks and so many deaths that some people think that the road itself is cursed. In reality, it runs right along the Holston River, and so fog is really common and it makes it very hard to see. This is exactly what happened on this day because the 5 boys in this car could barely see anything in front of them. And I like to think that one of them was like, hey, maybe we should slow down. But the driver just said the same thing that I say every time I'm going to take an edible that's going to have my friends restraining me like I'm a feral cat. I do this all the time. It's fine. By the time they reached Rutherwood Bridge, what looked like a small dog ran in front of their car, and the driver jerked the wheel, and he ran into a cement barrier on the bridge by accident. I didn't have to say on accident. He wouldn't have done it on purpose. I don't know. By the time the car was found, only 2 of the boys had survived. One of the boys was Charlie Hamblin, the son of Hugh Hamblin. Luckily, there was a hospital just up the road. A nurse called Hugh Hamblin and told him what happened, and he was at the hospital within like 30 minutes. And remember, it was crazy foggy, so that's really impressive. He got to the hospital, and apparently he was inconsolable. He wouldn't leave his son's bedside and stayed up all night, refusing to get any rest until he knew what was going on. The next morning, he got 2 pieces of news. One, Charlie was unfortunately the only survivor. The other kid had died during the night. And 2, Charlie was going to be okay. They had got him to stable condition, and they were pretty sure that he was going to make it. Hugh was understandably so excited about this news, but also he was so relieved. He decided that it was a good enough time to go home and get some rest, because remember, he hadn't slept all night. So he walks out of the hospital. He's still very dazed, very sleep deprived, but he does notice that the fog has gotten worse than even when he drove. He makes it to the middle of the road, and to his horror, a pair of headlights are moving toward him very quickly. In a panic and not really thinking, all he can do is just wave his arms above his head really frantically, but it was too late. The driver didn't see him in time. He was struck by the car. After several minutes of suffering, Hugh Hamblin took his final breath. Now, legend has it, as Hugh died, Charlie's ears began to bleed unexplainably. I don't think that's a word. A lot of the people who knew Charlie at the time said that before the accident, he was a really laid back, really fun guy to be around. But then after the accident, he was just really depressed and really sad. People who knew him say that he felt personally responsible for his dad's death and felt really guilty and never really lived a happy, fulfilling life because of it. A few years later, a man's driving down Netherland Inn Road. It's nighttime and it's raining really hard. Out of nowhere, a man appears in front of his car waving his hands. The guy slams on the brakes, but the road's really slick, and so he ends up hitting the guy. He's absolutely devastated, and he gets out of his car to see if there's any way he can help the man. To his shock, there's no one there. I think you know where this is going. He walks around the car, he screams, he tries to get other people to come help. There's no one there. He said that he stayed out there for over an hour looking for any sign of this man, and even went to the authorities, and they came out and investigated and couldn't find any sign that anyone had been there or had been hit by a car. To be honest, if I got hit by a car and I could still get up and move, I would probably be so embarrassed I would just run away. So maybe that's what happened. Also, just a tip, if you ever hit someone with your car and you can't find them in 15 minutes, you are legally allowed to leave the scene. That's a joke. Since the initial accident, there have been over 120 different sightings of Hugh Hamblin's ghost. And what's crazy is they all match up. People describe seeing a man wearing a trench coat and a hat and a white scarf frantically waving his hands over his head. Sometimes people hit him, sometimes they stop and get out and he's not there. Some people have even said they see a full Model T on the side of the road. Some describe it as completely intact and others describe it as completely destroyed. Apparently this happens so many times that the police in the area are just used to getting calls about a guy getting hit by a car in this area and then not being found. So, if you ever need to hit someone with a car, you could technically... Now, there are a lot of theories as to why Hugh's ghost keeps appearing in the same spot. The most popular theory is that his ghost remains there warning people to slow down so that no one suffers the same fate that he did. He's basically like a haunted crossing guard. And I think that's really noble and really cool. That you die and then your spirit continues to help the people around you. Another theory is that Netherland Inn Road is just haunted. Like I said, there have been a ton of accidents there, a ton of deaths, and Hugh isn't even the only ghost, not by a long shot. There are reports of headless horsemen. There are reports of a ghost carriage that disappears once it crosses the road. There's even reports of a ghost dog, which could be what ran out in front of Charlie's friends, or it could have just been a regular dog, I don't know. So it could be that Netherland Inn Road is just this evil, cursed place that kills people and then holds onto their spirit. What's really funny to me is that whether or not Hugh's ghost is real, the legend itself is having a direct impact on traffic because the area's become so popular that people actually slow down to look for him, which means that people are actively driving slower than they would have. So either way, he's keeping people safer. This is an amazing story. I think it's so cool. I love the idea of a ghost that's not out there to hurt anybody or cause any harm, but actually there to help people and keep people safer from what he had to experience. And I think it's really awesome. So if you ever find yourself in Kingsport, Tennessee, and you're driving down Netherland Inn Road, slow down and you just might see Hugh. And if not, you'll still be alive. So worth it either way.